Heartbreaking, millionaire observes mom return baby formula, then he acts at 3 a.m., the streets of prosperity, a town wrapped in fortune's embrace, stirred as shadows deepened into the early morning. An ordinary night took a dramatic turn when Richard Hayes, the town's million-dollar darling, witnessed something that would unravel the fabric of his life. Outside the all-night grocery store, he noticed a young mother, her tired eyes haunted by worry, returning a can of baby formula. It was a sight more powerful than a midnight storm. Was it desperation or necessity? Behind those closed doors, a world of choices hung heavy with unseen burdens. Richard sat in his luxury SUV, the engine humming softly, as he watched her walk in and out. She clutched the return slip like a lifeline, her expression dipping into despair. The neon lights flickered, casting an eerie glow over the scene, illuminating a face lined with concern. How could someone like Richard, gifted with wealth and privilege, truly grasp her struggle? Could the universe have picked him for a reason? A shiver trickled down his spine. Something was off. The air buzzed, thick with the unspoken tension of broken hopes. He recalled the stories of parents making impossible choices. Richard prided himself on his generosity, but had he ever really opened his eyes to the world outside? The ticking clock held him captive as he traced her steps through the grocery's glow. Each thud of his heart sounded louder than the quiet whispers of the night. Why her? Why now? The deeper he questioned, the more he felt the raw ache in his chest, a strange empathy tugging at him, almost magnetic. He had to know more. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Richard's thoughts spiraled, the darkness around him thickened. He felt an unshakable pull urging him to act, to shatter the silence of the night and dive headfirst into the whirlpool of her reality. Suddenly, his decision solidified. He would confront the unknown, break through those store doors, and offer help. But what would happen next? Would she accept? Would the truth reveal a broken system or bind their lives in incredible ways? The thoughts left him breathless, heartbeat echoing like a drum. The chime of the store bell rang in the air, and with it, Richard's life shifted forever, his future looming with unfathomable mystery ahead. Richard swung open the door of his SUV, the cold air slapping him awake. He stepped out, heart racing, each heartbeat a drumroll amplifying his resolve. Night surrounded him, echoing footsteps of people with their own unseen battles drifted through the shadows. But right now, his focus was clear, it centered on her. The mother. As he approached the store, bright lights flickered above. He caught her lingering outside, hands clasped tightly together, anxiety radiating from her like heat. She turned briefly, and their eyes met. In that split-second connection, Richard felt a rush of vulnerability, an electric jolt coursing through him. "Hey, excuse me," he called out, his voice trembling slightly, uncertain. She regarded him as if he were a ghost, vulnerability painted all over her face. "Can I help you?" she replied, cautious yet inviting, maybe searching for something more than just polite conversation. "I saw you return the formula. I was just wondering, is everything okay?" His words felt insufficient. He wanted to reach into her world, to help in a way that mattered. The haunted look deepened in her eyes. "Not really," she whispered, her voice barely breaking through the stillness. "It's all I can afford, and it still wasn't enough." Richard's mind spun. How could a simple can hold such devastating weight? "What do you need?" he asked, swallowed by concern and a burgeoning need to act. "Money," she sighed, raw honesty spilling forth, "to get through till the next paycheck. My baby needs food." Her vulnerability hit him like a wave, sudden and overwhelming. He was standing on the edge of a precipice, a world of unwavering reality awaiting his next move. Richard felt an urgency swell within him. He knew he could help, yet he sensed that this was just the tip of the iceberg. "I can help with that." "It's not a problem," he offered, then instantly questioned himself. Was he being naive? Was this even okay? Would help truly place a band-aid on a deeper wound? She glanced down. The tension in the air shifted, uncertainty battling with hope. "Why would you?" she asked, suspicion gnawing at her defenses. A fair question, one he would have asked too, if the roles were reversed. "Because I don't want to just sit by, not anymore. This town is packed with riches while you're struggling." He hesitated, feeling the weight of his privilege crash over him. "I've got the means to help. Just let me." "Why do you care?" She peered up at him, skepticism mingling with a flicker of hope. Richard took a deep breath. Her question resonated deeply, the truth of it struck home. Maybe he didn't entirely know why, but something about her pain pulled at him. "Because someone should," he replied, his voice steady and raw. "And it might as well be me." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them both, thick with unspoken questions, sorrow, and unrelenting hope. "Okay," she breathed finally, almost imperceptibly. And just like that, the balance of their worlds began to shift, one tentative step at a time, yet, just beyond their conversation, shadows shifted idly in the distance. Richard caught a glimpse of something, figures that lingered too long in dim light, their intentions unreadable. Who were they? What role could they play in this unfolding drama? That eerie feeling returned, nudging at the back of his mind, insisting that nothing would be simple. And as hope arose from the ashes of despair, darkness loomed just outside their fragile moment. Richard's heart began to race again. What secrets had he unknowingly walked into? What could go wrong? He was about to find out, and the truth would leave no one unscathed. Richard's pulse quickened as anxiety gripped him. The shadows in the distance thickened, almost alive, seeming to pulse with menace. He felt the weight of the moment, sweat forming on his brow. It wasn't just a conversation with a struggling mother anymore, a storm brewed just beyond his sight. "Let us go somewhere safe," he said, instinct pulling him to protect her. "Safe?" she echoed, glancing over her shoulder. The unease in her eyes deepened. He could tell she didn't want to budge from this dimly lit spot. "I can't just leave. My baby, trust me, we need to talk away from here." He moved closer, lowering his voice, trying to soften the urgency pressing on her heart. "They look like they don't want us to talk." Her gaze darted nervously, then back to him, caught in a web of worry and reluctant hope. "Okay," she whispered, the words slipping past her lips like a prayer. "But only if you promise you won't hurt me." "I swear, I'm here to help," Richard promised, feeling his own voice break with sincerity. "I would never hurt anyone who's in trouble." They stepped away from the store, moving quickly down the street. The fluorescent lights faded behind them, darkness creeping in like a fog. Richard's eyes skimmed the edges of the alleyways. Those figures were still there, the tension palpable. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was courting danger lurking just beyond the surface. As they turned a corner, the mother hesitated. "I don't even know your name," she said, a note of despair shading her voice. "Richard," he replied, meeting her gaze. "What about you?" "Claire," she breathed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world pressed down hard. "I never thought I'd be here, at this moment, asking a stranger for help." "No one plans to struggle," he said, the empathy pouring out of him. "But you have to hold on. You can get through this." "I try, but it's always one step forward, two steps back." The tears glistened in her eyes, ready to spill over. "I lost my job, and my savings, it feels like quicksand." Richard winced, imagining the depths of her despair. "You're not alone anymore." "That's what they all say," she muttered, glancing back, her voice laced with disbelief and sorrow. "People come and go. No one stays. No, I mean it, he insisted, stepping closer, his need for connection raw and palpable. I'm not leaving. Whatever you need, Claire, I'll help. We'll figure this out together. But her hopeful expression faltered. What if they find out? What if they suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the air. Both their heads whipped around, hearts pounding. Richard's instincts kicked in. We have to go. Now. He grabbed her wrist, pulling her down a narrow path. Darkness enveloped them as they ran, adrenaline shooting through him. He could still hear the scream echoing off the walls, creating a chilling backdrop to their flight. They veered into an abandoned alley, heavy with a damp, musty smell. Richard's heart thundered in his chest, not just from fear but from the urgency to get Claire to safety. His thoughts raced. They were diving into a world that felt dangerous and unknown, and he was beginning to question his decision to step into this fight. As they moved deeper into the darkness, Claire finally turned to him, her eyes wide with fear. What did we just run from? Something I'm not sure we're ready for, Richard replied, his voice shaky. But deep down, the thought twisted in his psyche, what had he awakened by stepping into her world? And just as he feared the revelation crashing in, a chilling sound erupted from the alleyway behind them, a low growl, deep and resonant, one that promised violence. Richard's heart dropped. What had he really walked into? In trying to save her, had he placed them both in the path of something far worse? They both froze, the weight of looming danger settling like lead in their chests. The growl reverberated in the air, tearing through the thick tension like a blade. Richard felt Claire tense beside him, her breath hitching in her throat. Their shadows danced against the damp brick walls, but now those figures felt closer, hungry, watching. Shoo, Richard whispered, his voice barely a strain. He could feel the primal energy vibrating at their backs. The growl morphed into a string of guttural noises, the sound echoing like a death knell. What is that? Claire's voice trembled. Richard scanned the alley. Shadows seemed to shift, warping as if something were lurking just out of sight. I don't know. Panic surged through him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his desire to help had drawn them into something out of their control. The growl deepened, becoming more menacing, followed by a series of sharp clicks. Richard's blood turned cold. He took Claire's hand, gripping it tightly. We need to keep moving. They stumbled backward, dodging around discarded crates and broken bottles. The sound grew louder behind them, a low hissing sound now mingling with the growl. He could feel the tremors of fear pulsing from Claire, matching the rhythm of his own racing heart. Where do we go? She urged, her voice shrill, eyes darting toward the entrance they had just fled from. Just stay close, he said, taking a deep breath, willing his voice to steady. If he could just keep her calm, they had a better shot at figuring this out. We need a plan. Before he could finish, something lunged at them from the shadows. Richard barely had time to react as a large shadowy figure leapt forward, its gleaming eyes locking onto Claire. Richard pushed her aside, feeling the rush of wind as the creature barely missed her. His heart thundered in his chest. Adrenaline sliced through his panic, and he instinctively swung his arm, catching the creature on the side that it recoiled, letting out a terrifying yelp, but it was bigger than he had imagined, something feral, like a wolf crossed with a nightmare. The creature snarled and lunged again, teeth bared, glinting in the darkness. Run! Richard yelled, urgency slicing through the air as he turned, grabbing Claire again. Together they sprinted deeper into the alley, their breaths heavy and frantic. With each swift step, he felt the danger snapping closer. The creature's growl morphed into frantic barking, echoing eerily, urging Richard to keep moving faster. What is that thing? Claire gasped, her face pale, tears brimming. I have no idea. Richard shouted, desperation in his voice. But we can't stop. Just hold on to me. They made a sharp turn, barely avoiding a pile of garbage. Richard's feet stumbled over a forgotten sign that lay half buried in the debris. Claire lost her footing, her grip on him weakening. Claire! he cried. He quickly turned, reaching out just in time to catch her as she fell. But the moment slowed, a sensation of darkness pooling in the pit of his stomach. The creature spotted them again, bounding with terrifying speed. Richard's instincts screamed for him to protect her at all costs. He tightened his grip, pulling her up, and they pressed onward, the growl hot on their heels. Which way? Claire's voice was almost lost in the chaos. There's a street ahead. Richard cried, the faint glimmer of lights cutting through the darkness. As they neared the edge of the alley, fear twisted inside him. What lay beyond those flickering lights? Hope or something worse? Just as they burst into view of the street, Richard turned around, glancing back toward the alleyway they had fled. A howl ripped through the air, echoing like a thunderclap. What the hell is happening? Claire's voice quaked, mirroring his own turmoil. Richard took a deep breath, heart racing. We're not safe yet. We need to find somewhere we can hide and fast. But as they began to move, the shadows shifted again, coiling like smoke. The night had drawn them into its depths, and in that moment, they both felt the chilling realization that perhaps they were not alone. What hunted them remained close, and the chase was far from over. What new horrors awaited just beyond the edge of the light? They burst onto the street, panting and wild-eyed, the oppressive weight of the alley fading just slightly behind them. Neon signs flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows on the pavement. But the pull of fear still gripped Richard's insides. Where? Claire gasped, her voice trembling as she looked around, desperately scanning the bustling street. Anywhere. Richard replied, his voice cracking under pressure. We need to move. He pulled her toward a small diner, its bright lights offering a slice of safety amidst the chaos. As they neared the entrance, he felt the unmistakable reality of eyes on them, heavy and predatory. Wait! Claire cried, halting abruptly. What? Richard turned back, heart racing as he gripped her shoulder. There is something following us, she whispered, taking a step back toward the edge of the street. Her eyes were wide, shimmering with fear. Just then, a flash of movement darted across the road, an enormous shadow slinking between two parked cars. Richard's heart stopped. That wasn't just a trick of the light. The creature from the alley had followed them into the street, hunger glowing in its fierce eyes. Go! He shouted, fear injecting adrenaline into his limbs. He shoved Claire forward and sprinted toward the diner, not daring to look back. As they burst through the glass door, the clattering of dishes and the sizzle of meat on the grill filled their ears. The elderly waitress turned, her expression shifting from mild annoyance to concern as she took in their disheveled state. What is going on? She asked, but Richard barely heard her. He looked over his shoulder. The creature was closer now, its massive body prowling just outside the diner. Richard's breath quickened. We need to hide. The diner seemed filled with oblivious patrons, engrossed in their meals. Richard motioned for Claire to follow him toward the back, where a towering stack of empty crates offered a potential refuge. Richard, she started, her voice shaky. If it comes in here at 1 to get past the door, he assured, though the doubt knotted inside him. He was whispering, but the panic in his tone was undeniable. It can't. At that moment, the front door swung open with a loud bang that made everyone jump. A gust of wind thrust in, ushering the night's shadows into the warm diner. Richard's heart raced as he glimpsed the creature silhouetted in the doorway, muscles rippling under the moonlight, eyes glistening with primal hunger. The waitress gasped, and the clamor of silverware dropping resonated through the air. What the hell is that? One patron shouted, adrenaline igniting chaos. Claire yanked at his arm, pulling him further into the darkness of the back of the diner. We have to get out. Now. Richard felt the walls closing in as confusion erupted around them. The creature growled low, sending tremors through the ground that matched the rising panic inside him. With the diner's inhabitants scrambling to escape, Richard's instincts kicked in. He needed to control the chaos. Everyone, stay calm. he yelled, raising a hand. But no one was listening. We can't let it in. It was too late. The creature pushed inside, forcing its weight against the door, splintering wood and glass. The growl echoed deep in Richard's bones, a warning sliced through the panic. Just before it could unleash itself on the fearful crowd, Richard's eyes locked onto the back exit, a door leading into the alley that held secrets of its own. The most promising escape or perhaps an even greater nightmare, his heart thundered as he turned to Claire, making the decision without second-guessing. We're going out the back. As he surged toward the door, he could feel the ground shake beneath him. This was their last chance. But fate had a cruel twist in store. What awaited them in that dark alley? Would it be freedom, or a new horror that was even darker than the beast? The door burst open, and Richard and Claire darted into the narrow alley, the stench of garbage and sweat hitting them like a slap in the face. He pushed Claire ahead of him, the urge to protect her clawing at his insides. The sounds of chaos faded quickly, swallowed by the claustrophobic walls of the alley. Is it still behind us? Claire panted, glancing over her shoulder, her eyes wide with dread. The dim light from the street compared to the shadows around them felt like a thin veil. Richard couldn't be sure. The growl still echoed in his mind, like the aftershock of a thunderclap lingering long after the storm passed. He swallowed hard, the taste of fear bitter on his tongue. I don't know, he breathed, adrenaline still coursing through him. They needed to keep moving. The alley stretched out like an endless tunnel, crisscrossed with darkness. He took a breath, trying to steady himself. We have to find a way out. There's got to be something. Before he could finish, a loud crash erupted behind them, and Richard spun around. The creature was tearing through the diner's door, the sound of splintering wood making his heart lurch. Run! Claire squeaked, her voice barely above a whisper before she took off further into the shadows, pushing herself to the brink. Richard followed, his instincts screaming. The alley twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the city's underbelly. Graffiti-caked walls loomed, whispering secrets older than both of them. Passers-by barely acknowledged their flight, lost in their own worlds of late-night revelry. Shining lights glimmered at the alley's end, promising salvation, but Richard didn't dare hope just yet. Claire! He shouted, catching up to her. Where do we go? He was breathless, the weight of everything clawing at him. Over here. She pointed to a rickety old door nestled between two larger buildings. There was a rusty sign swinging above it, flickering in and out of focus like the shadows. With no time to waste, they bolted for it, adrenaline heightening their every movement. Richard reached for the handle, his fingers trembling. He pushed the door open and stumbled inside, pulling Claire in behind him before slamming it shut. They stood in a dimly lit storage room cluttered with empty boxes and steel shelving. The air was stale and suffocating, but it felt safer than the alley. Richard pressed his back against the door, heart hammering in his chest. What now? Claire whispered, a tremor in her voice. We wait, Richard replied, the uncertainty gnawing at him. He stared at the door as shadows danced across it, signs of life fading from the world outside. But a harsh growl reverberated from beyond the door, dragging Richard's gaze back. It was an angry, low rumble that sent chills racing down his spine. Is it here? Claire's voice cracked, her body vibrating with panic. No, he whispered, but he wasn't sure. The growl intensified, rattling the door as if the beast believed it could force its way through. Suddenly, the shelves rattled, and a sharp scraping sound echoed through the room. It was coming from inside. Richard's heart dropped, dread pooling in his stomach. A gust of wind whirled through a cracked window, carrying the distant sounds of the city. A glimpse of hope illuminated Claire's face. What if it's just rats? We can sneak out through the back. But Richard shook his head, his chest tightening at the thought. It's not just rats. It could be. Before he could finish his thought, the door shuddered violently, the creature's power unmistakable. We need to get out of here. Now. They raced to a window, pressing against it, but there was no escape, only more shadows creeping in. Fear clenched at Richard's throat, and he could feel fate closing in, tighter and tighter. "Richard! What do we do?" Claire pleaded, her eyes wide as she surveyed their surroundings. That he opened his mouth, urgency clawing at him. "We can't stay here. We need to face it." Another powerful crash shook the door as the creature's growl grew louder. Richard felt the heat of its breath creeping through the cracks. But the real question shot through his mind: what was waiting for them outside? Would they face the beast, or was there something even worse lurking in the darkness, something they couldn't even begin to fathom? The shelves rattled again, the sound reverberating off the walls like a twisted melody of impending doom. Richard's instincts kicked in as he grabbed Claire's hand. "We need to move. Now." The growl on the other side of the door rose to an ear-splitting roar. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand. They darted toward the back of the storage room, dodging empty boxes and metal racks that threatened to trip them at every turn. "Richard, over here." Claire pointed toward a shadowy corner where a small door was partially obscured by dust and the clutter of forgotten supplies. He hesitated for just a moment, the pounding of his heart drowning out the chaos outside. "What if it's locked? Then we break it down." She was breathing heavily, but her resolve was solid. He dashed to the door, yanking on the handle. It creaked open with a low groan, letting a sliver of light spill in. "Come on." He pulled Claire through after him. They found themselves in a cramped little maintenance hallway, the walls lined with outdated equipment and flickering lights. The oppressive darkness felt heavy around them, pressing in like a vice. "Which way?" Claire whispered, glancing back at the sliver of light they'd just escaped. Richard's instincts told him to keep moving forward. "Keep going straight," he said with a confidence he didn't feel. Every instinct inside him screamed they were running out of time, and whatever hunted them was getting closer. They stumbled over rusty tools and discarded machinery, their breaths shallow as they raced down the hall. The growling outside intensified, a terrifying reminder that the monster was closer. Each sound echoed off the walls, a brutal crescendo that made Richard's skin crawl. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the hallway from behind. Richard froze, his heart skipping a beat. What was that? Claire's eyes widened in fear. "It's getting in." "No, we can't think like that," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We just need to get out. Focus." In the distance, Richard spotted a faint light squeezing through a battered door at the end of the hallway. He sprinted toward it, Claire right at his heels, the dread clawing at his mind threatening to pull them back into the abyss. They reached the door and Richard threw it open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling upward. "Up. Now!" he urged as he bolted inside. Claire followed, her fingers gripping the railing tightly. They climbed frantically, the sounds of splintering wood and a monstrous roar becoming distant yet ominous. At the top, they emerged into an attic space, cluttered with forgotten memories, old furniture covered in sheets and dust. The air was stale, but it felt like a sanctuary compared to what they had just escaped. "Claire, we need to barricade the door." Richard looked around, spotting an old dresser. Together, they heaved it against the door, their muscles screaming in protest. "Do you think it will hold?" she asked, her voice shaky as she stepped back, eyes flickering in every direction. "I don't know," he admitted, a lump forming in his throat. But the growling had quieted for a moment, and that could only mean one thing: the creature was hunting. Claire's eyes darted toward a window. "What about getting out through here?" Richard rushed to peek outside, catching a glimpse of the bustling street 4 floors down. "It's too high." A deafening crash shook the attic, and the door buckled under the pressure. The dresser moved slightly, the beast on the other side was a force that couldn't be stopped. "There's no time," Claire cried. Richard steadied himself, adrenaline surging. "We have to hold it back." But deep down, his heart sank. They had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Just when it seemed all was lost, a glimmer of light flickered in the corner of the room, a strange box pulsing softly, whispering secrets only it knew. "What is that?" Claire whispered, her eyes wide once more, drawing Richard's attention just as he felt the grip of panic tighten once again. "You know what this is?" he asked, curiosity battling the dread. With the door shaking violently and the monster on the other side, he realized they had no choice. Would solving the mystery of the box give them a chance for survival, or was it a last desperate grasp at hope? Only one way to find out. Claire's heart raced, matching the frantic rhythm of the beast on the other side of the door. Richard could feel that old box pulsing, the soft light contrasting with their dark reality. It was as if it sensed their despair, beckoning them like a beacon in a storm. "What are you thinking?" Claire urged, her voice barely a whisper. Richard took a cautious step closer, the jumble of fear and curiosity sending shivers down his spine. "We could try to open it. There might be something inside that can help us." The door shuddered violently again, and dust rained down from the rafters above their heads. They had to make a choice, fast. "It could be dangerous," Claire warned, her eyes darting back to the door. "I know," he replied, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but the hopelessness lingered like a thick fog. He reached for the box, his hands trembling as he brushed away the layers of dust that had settled over it. The surface was warm, almost alive beneath his fingers. With a deep breath, he applied pressure to the lid. It shifted, then popped open with a faint click. Light burst from the opening, illuminating the attic in an ethereal glow. Inside, he found a collection of crystals, each one shimmering in colors he had never seen. "What is this?" Claire's voice was a strangled mixture of awe and confusion. "I don't know," but maybe before he could finish, the ground beneath them shook, and the dresser moved again, the door creaking in surrender to the creature's relentless force. "Richard!" Claire shouted, urgency overriding their fascination. "We don't have time." With a quick decision, he grabbed a handful of crystals, their smooth surfaces cool to the touch. "I'll hold it off. You figure out what these do." "Are you insane? We should be going," Claire urged, but Richard was already positioning himself next to the door, his back pressed against the dresser. "I can distract it. Trust me." A deep growl erupted from the other side, shaking the very bones of the attic. The dresser buckled further, the creature testing its strength against Richard's desperate push for salvation. "Just be careful," Claire cried, digging through the box as she hurriedly grabbed a crystal of deep blue light, holding it up like a talisman. Richard's heart drummed in his ears, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He felt a surge of power as the creature roared once more, its breath hot and rancid against the wood. "Come on, you ugly brute. Is that all you've got?" he shouted, his voice filling the small space, defiance battling against fear. Suddenly, Claire let out a breathless gasp. "Richard!" "I think the crystals are." Before she could finish, the door burst open, splintering the wood as the dresser was thrown aside like a toy. The creature lunged, its grotesque form looming in the doorway, shadows dancing across the room. Richard hurled the blue crystal toward the beast. A flash of light erupted, illuminating everything in a brilliant blue hue, driving back the darkness momentarily. The creature shrieked, its screech ringing through the attic like the wail of a banshee. Richard stumbled back, eyes wide, as the beast faltered. The air pulsed around them, thick with magical energy. "What the hell was that?" he yelled over the chaos. Claire, breathing heavily, grabbed a vibrant green crystal from the box. "This one feels different. I think it can." Another roar cut her off, and Richard forced himself to focus, heart racing like a runaway train. "Do it. Whatever it is, now." With trembling hands, Claire lifted the crystal high, the light radiating from it like the sun itself. The creature reeled back, fury and confusion crossing its menacing gaze. As it flinched, Richard couldn't help but think, could these crystals be the key to their escape? Or were they merely adding fuel to the fire? The next moment felt like eternity as they stood on the brink between hope and disaster, the roiling uncertainty of survival hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Would this strange power save them, or would it unleash something even more terrifying? Claire's voice snapped him back to focus. "Please, Richard, now." And just like that, everything hinged on the impulsive choices they had made, leaving desperation teetering on the edge of their fate. What new horrors awaited them as they stood together against the wrath of the unknown? The intense light from Claire's green crystal enveloped the attic, creating a dazzling shield against the beast's ferocity. Richard could feel the warmth from the crystal radiating into his skin, filling him with an energy he didn't know existed. "Keep it up!" he shouted over the cacophony of angry roars and splintering wood. Claire's face was a mask of concentration, her eyes locked onto the creature. The flickering light danced between them, capturing the tension winding tighter and tighter like a spiraling coil. Each moment felt like an eternity as the beast hesitated, swirling shadows thawing against the brightness, but that hesitation was fleeting. The creature regrouped, its eyes blazing with fury as it charged forward again. Richard caught a glimpse of jagged teeth, razor-sharp and glistening in the dim light, and an icy grip of dread wrapped around his chest. "Wait! I think I can channel its energy," Claire yelled, her voice straining as the crystal's glow intensified, bursting out like an explosion of green flames. "Channel?" Richard replied, confusion swimming in his mind. "What do you mean?" "I can direct the power. Just hold on," she shouted back, taking a step closer to the beast, grounding herself with brave resolve. The creature lunged again, and in an impulsive rush, Richard pressed his body further against the door frame, the dresser shifting with the force behind him. He felt something thick and cold brush against his ankle, and looked down. A shadow flickered, tentacles slithering out from the corners of the room like creeping vines. "Claire! There's something, I can feel it!" she screamed, her voice slicing through the chaos. "It's connected. We have to combine our energies." Richard felt a pulse of panic, but he nodded. "Okay. On 3, we aim our powers together." The beast howled, the air vibrating around them. 1, 2. The moment stretched, reversing time around them. Beneath the din, fear gripped Richard like a vice, but as he glanced toward Claire, determination lit her features with stark clarity. 3, together, they hurled their crystals towards the beast, an overwhelming surge of energy erupting as the rays of blue and green collided midair, weaving a fabric of light that flickered mesmerizingly. The creature's eyes widened, confusion and rage melding into one, and it hesitated again, a moment waiting in uncertainty. "No. Keep going." Claire pressed, her resolve unwavering. The light oscillated, growing brighter and more intense as they focused their combined force on the creature, but then, something changed. The ground beneath them quaked violently, trembling as if something in the universe had shifted. Richard stumbled, instinctively reaching out to steady Claire. Her crystal flickered, dimming slightly as the blast became too much. "I can't hold it," Claire yelled, sweat beading on her forehead. "I need more time." The beast roared in response, as if sensing the opening, and lunged again, a swift and primal motion that sent terror coursing through Richard's veins. "Run!" he shouted, desperation leaking into his tone. "This isn't working." But Claire's eyes burned fiercely. "No. We are so close." Suddenly, a deep rumbling sound echoed through the attic, like thunder crackling in a clear sky. Richard's stomach dropped as the shadows from the corners coalesced, forming figures that twisted and shrieked into existence, echoing the darkness that the creature emanated. "Not just one," he breathed, realizing they were surrounded. "There are more." The walls felt like they were closing in. Richard's heart raced, his mind juggling the chaos around them. Would they be swallowed by this nightmare, or had they only begun to unravel something deeper? "Make a choice, Richard," Claire urged, her voice a desperate plea as she struggled to maintain the light, puffing and panting from the effort. "But which choice?" Richard could feel the weight of decisions pressing down, the unknown consequences loomed like thunderheads ready to burst. The pulse of the old box whispered unanswered questions. In that moment, he realized, was it truly the crystals that held the key, or something buried deeper in the shadows? "Claire, we need to." A brilliant flash erupted. The world around them became an explosive kaleidoscope of color and sound as the creature roared its defiance, now trapped within a whirlwind of colliding energies, but in the heart of the storm, as the light roared and the shadows twisted, something began to emerge, something far more horrifying than anything they'd faced before. What awaited them on the other side of this clash was unfathomable, but one thing was certain: they were not alone anymore. "What have we awakened?" Richard gasped, the realization crashing down like a heavy tide. As the first tendrils of darkness slithered closer, the air thick with sinister promise, Richard and Claire stood together, their fate hanging in the balance. Was escape possible, or had they just opened a door that could never be closed? The whirlwind of chaos tore at Richard and Claire, a fusion of vibrant light and threatening shadows enveloping them. In that second, a realization pierced through. This confrontation was no longer just about survival, it was about unearthing the truth that lay twisted in the heart of their darkest fears. Richard could feel the crystals pulsing with a fierce urgency, echoing the tension in the room, urging him to act before the flickering light faded into nothingness. "Channel it! Harness the energy!" Richard shouted over the cacophony, heart racing as figures shifted at the edge of the light, limbs stretching like smoke. Claire's eyes locked onto his, fierce determination igniting them. "We can turn this around." With a hurried glance toward the darkening corners, Richard took a step forward, breaking apart from the shielding light, launching himself into the creature's reckless embrace. The very air thickened with tension as shadows lunged, attempting to reclaim the territory they had lost. Claire held her ground, her crystal glowing fiercely as Richard cried out, "On three. We push back together. 1, 2, 3. Streams of color erupted from their crystals, coursing through the air like wildfire, colliding and weaving into a blinding spectacle of light that illuminated every corner of the attic. The creature screeched, staggering back as flickers of its own dark essence began to unravel. "Join me!" Claire shouted, sweat tracking down her face, her voice a powerful anchor in the storm. Richard felt the warmth of their combined energy, a cyclone of strength that surged deeper and deeper. He could see the grotesque shadow figures dissolve, vaporized in the dazzling brightness, their whispers snuffed out as if they'd never been, but as the shadows crumpled, a new form began to emerge, something born of dread, larger, wilder, and more feral than the creature that chased them. Richard's heart raced with terror as the new beast, a mass of dark tendrils coiling with sinister intent, let loose a spine-chilling howl that shook the very foundation of the attic. "Stay focused, Claire. We can't let it take hold," Richard cried, feeling the air crackling with malevolence. They needed to topple this new enemy before it enveloped them in despair, before it extinguished hope completely. "I can do it." Claire's voice rang out, determined and fierce. The crystal's glow intensified in her grip, illuminating the shadows with blinding brilliance. Richard felt her power, the raw energy radiating such light could banish the encroaching darkness. "I believe in you," he shouted, tightening his grip on his own crystal, urging the energy within to rise. Together, they formed a barrier, drawing deep from their deepest wells of courage. "This ends now." In that moment of defiance, they hurled their crystals as one, aiming directly at the lurking mass of shadows. Time seemed to hang as everything stilled, suspended in the tension of possibility. The moment when their energy collided with the darkness was electric, a primal surge that ignited everything around them. The blasts ignited in an explosion of radiant color, scattering the shadows like leaves in the wind. But as warmth engulfed Claire and Richard, they felt an overwhelming force push back the very fabric of their reality, trembling, stretching as if birthing a new dawn. Then, silence descended like a blanket, wrapping around them. The light faded slowly, and as it dimmed, Richard and Claire exchanged breathless looks. "Did it work?" Richard's voice was barely above a whisper. From the fading chaos emerged a stillness, a thick, balanced calm settled over the attic. They stood in the aftermath, the remnants of darkness dissipating, retreating into oblivion. Shadows slinked away, leaving nothing but the dust motes suspended in a soft beam of light. Claire breathed a shaky sigh, relief cascading through her. We did it, we really did it. Richard's heart swelled, the weight of fear dissipated, replaced by something lighter, a budding hope. But what if this was just a beginning? He asked gently, the edges of uncertainty. Still wrestling with their victory, the air felt different now, no longer thick with dread but buzzing with possibility. The whispers of shadows had quieted, but they both knew that each choice held the power to change everything and that the world held many more stories like theirs waiting to unfold. Then we faced them together, Richard, Claire replied, determination lighting her eyes. We don't go back to being uninvolved. We fight for those still struggling, still in the dark. He nodded, the bond between them irrefutably stronger now. The night outside had begun to yield, and dawn peeked through the attic windows, casting warm hues across their faces. Richard took Claire's hands, grounding them both in the promise of a new day. Together, he confirmed that as they climbed down from the attic's sanctuary, the weight of their past experiences hung behind them while ahead beckoned the promise of a brighter future. They stepped out into the sunlight, the world alive with renewed colors, awareness blooming in tandem with the light that in this moment, they were not just survivors, they were warriors ready to face whatever the world threw at them. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, it helps us make more magic happen. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about their epic journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us continue this journey together.